In the shadow of the Pentagon, chaos brews. U.S. Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth faces a storm. Leaked documents, illegal wiretrap claims, and a fractured inner circle. His war-fighting obsession clashes with strategy, while press bans and prayer services ignite constitutional fears. As the White House trust wavers, the world wonders, is Trump's loyal warrior leading, or is he losing control of America's military machine? I'm Henny Saif, and this is Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
Welcome back. The Guardian has reported that the White House is reeling as doubts grow over Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's handling of the Pentagon leak investigation. Advisors were stunned as they learn that the case relied on claims of an illegal NSA wiretap, an unconstitutional move that deepened mistrust. Hegseth fired top aides, including Dan Caldwell, accusing them of leaking a secret document about the Panama Canal. But Caldwell denied it, calling it political retaliation, and exposed rifts within the Pentagon. Now, with no clear evidence, key allies question the probe's legitimacy, threatening Hegseth's credibility and Trump's national security image ahead of crucial Senate hearings. According to the Washington Post, inside the Pentagon, a silent Cold War rages within Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's inner circle. Clashes between top aides Eric Gracie and Ricky Buria reveal deep dysfunction, such as infighting, inexperience, and paranoia weaken leadership. Despite Trump's public backing, White House advisors questioned the legitimacy of Hegseth's purge of officials accused of leaks, some citing an alleged illegal NSA wiretap. With Senate hearings looming, media restrictions tightening, and internal chaos spreading, the pressure is mounting. Is America's top defense chief fit to lead in an era of global crisis? From the halls of the Pentagon to the West Wing, a silent crisis unfolds. Is Trump's defense chief leading or losing America's military from within?
In the shadow of the world's largest military complex, a silent war is brewing, not abroad, but within. The question now gripping Washington: does the White House still trust its own defense secretary? Pete Hegseth, the former Fox host turned Trump loyalist, promised a leaner, more lethal force, but behind closed doors, chaos reigns. It began with a leak, a secret Pentagon document outlining plan for reclaiming the Panama Canal. Suspicion fell on top aides, including Dan Caldwell, but how the investigation unfolded has shocked even seasoned insiders. The White House was told the evidence came from an illegal NSA wiretap, unconstitutional and explosive. But when they pressed for proof, confusion erupted. Hegseth's personal lawyer, Tim Parlator, reportedly cited the wiretap as justification, but he later denied saying so. Meanwhile, Caldwell denied leaking anything and took his case public. This is not about national security. It is about internal politics. As the Pentagon burns internally, critics say Hegseth's obsession with lethality is costing real lives. Military veterans and analysts warn readiness without strategy is just recklessness. Hegseth's ban on press access and promotion of Christian prayer services inside the Pentagon have raised alarms about politicization. As Senate hearings loom and internal distrust grows, one question remains. Is Pete Hegseth still fit to lead America's military machine? In a world facing rising threats, the United States needs strong, transparent defense leadership. The answer may already be shaping Trump's and the world's future.
To analyze the most recent updates concerning the growing internal and external tension surrounding U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, examining his leadership style, controversial decisions, and the recent Pentagon leak, we're joined from Washington by Mr. Jim Townsend, the former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, and Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Global Foreign Policy Center Executive Director. Gentlemen, welcome to Think Tank. Mr. Townsend, given the Pentagon's internal Cold War and the rift between White House advisors and Hegseth's team, is there a real risk of institutional paralysis at America's top defense body?
No, there's not the risk of paralysis of the Pentagon, certainly, or the military establishment. As you know, it's pretty big. And the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which is the policy part of the Pentagon with about a couple of hundred civilians primarily who work there, they go about the day-to-day business no matter what's happening up in the Secretary's front office. And that's what we're really talking about. The people around the Secretary of Defense, his aides, his personal assistants, and just the feuding between them is what it sounds like. But the rest of the Pentagon, the military services are going to continue along their everyday work according to guidance that they've received. And the Pentagon will continue to function. It's just that front office of the secretaries where you see the dysfunction.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Russell, now looking at Hegseth's aggressive push for lethality over diplomacy, it has drawn criticism from veterans. But could this ideology lead to reckless military escalation in volatile regions like the Middle East or Asia?
Well, it's good to be with you again, Hank. Look, as a veteran myself, I have concerns. I mean, there is, in the people that I've talked to inside the Pentagon, as recently as last week, there's extreme concern that the leadership in the top is in over their head. Pete Hegseth is definitely not ready to lead and doesn't have the experience to lead this. And he's going to sacrifice people that were close to him to do this. Look, I'm not going to substantiate. I can't confirm whether or not there are NSA illegal taps being done as part of the leak investigation. That will come out in either a internal inspector general report or some other investigation. However, what I will tell you is this is a leadership team at the Pentagon that is causing low morale, not increasing it. The word on the street in the recruiting circles is there is recruiting capabilities that are being drawn in at the junior enlisted level, but they are losing thought management and thought leadership at the highest levels. We saw that with the dismissal of C.Q. Brown. We saw that with the dismissal of the chief of naval operations, and we saw that with the dismissal of the commandant of the United States Coast Guard. There is a growing gap and a growing concern that there is not going to be enough leadership that will be able to maintain a stable readiness inside DOD. That is something that the Trump White House is going to have to address.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Townsend, with reports citing an alleged illegal NSA wiretap used to justify the firings that are later denied, how damaging really is this to the credibility and trust of the Pentagon's leadership and its legal oversight?
Well, it's very damaging to the credibility. It's something that is unprecedented. I worked in the Pentagon 35 years under a lot of secretaries of defense, and And they've all had their ups and downs in terms of their private office, the front office. But this is the worst I've ever seen. So, yes, I think their credibility both downwards within the Department of Defense as well as within the interagency relations with the State Department or the National Security Council with the Office of the President. That credibility will certainly be damaged with those actors for sure. In terms of the legality of it all, that's all very murky to me. The NSA doing a wiretap doesn't make sense to me. That's not what the NSA is pretty tightly scripted in terms of how they go about their business. It's not domestic. That's the FBI. So I don't know. There just sounds like there's a lot of things that are part of this fighting within that front office that's coming out. And a lot of it's probably not true. So I think drawing conclusions based on rumor and one party undercutting the other is very difficult to do. But that's the problem, is all of that ferment impacts credibility with allies. It impacts credibility certainly within Washington and among the American people too.
Mm-hmm. Well, other than the wiretapping, there are also the leaks. Mr. Russell, following the Yemen signal chat incident and the Panama Canal leak fallout, what are the broader implications for U.S. military readiness and interagency coordination then?
Look, I'm sure Mr. Alexander will agree the fact that, you can sit there and you can talk about lethal readiness. You can talk about the readiness level being at the highest level. The reality is, anybody who has served can tell you that you can't keep drumming that horn. You can't keep drumming that signal, saying that you're going to maintain the ultimate level of readiness. You can't maintain that. It is not feasible. It's not realistic. You're going to drive them you're going to have them be ready, so ready that they're going to become immobile almost. What we've got to look at here is the fact that right now we're at a critical time inside both foreign policy and strategic policy when it comes to defense. The Trump administration with our allies overseas has had a real hard time gaining credibility when it comes to NATO, for example. Our NATO allies are watching us with a very close but awkward eye right now because of the fact that the Trump administration and his own national security leadership, including Hegseth and Rubio, haven't really shown 100% commitment to NATO. They've been seen until recently as kowtowing to adversaries such as Vladimir Putin in Russia. So all of that combined, along with the idea that right now inside the Pentagon, there is low morale and a lack of thought leadership continuity looking forward downstream, that puts the U.S. Security front at a very, very awkward and possibly dangerous position when it comes to our global standing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Townsend, now that we're talking about low morale and a lack of credibility, Hegseth had sidelined experienced military aides in favor of loyalists with limited background. So does this mark a dangerous shift from strategic governance to political loyalty within the national security circles?
Well, that's exactly right. It signals a couple of things, but on the political loyalty, I think that's a major concern, whether it is particularly in the military services. My colleague talked about some of the senior level officers who were fired within the first few weeks of the new administration. And the fear is that they're going to be replaced by more political generals, if you will, or flag officers who come in more as loyalists to Trump than to the Constitution, if you will. I mean, it's a feature sometimes of senior people, whether in the military or civilians, where loyalty sometimes trumps what the nature of civilian controlled military is all about. So, supporting the Constitution. So I think that's a great fear. I think in terms of another fear for the front office, the front office of the Secretary of Defense is usually a mix of personal aides who, of course, come in as political appointees and their loyalties are with the administration. And there's a sprinkling of those within that secretary's front office. And there's about maybe 25 civilians and military in that front office of the secretary. But a good number of the levers, they come in making sure that the trains run on time, that the right paperwork gets up to the secretary, and that the building gets the word down from the secretary of what needs to be done to implement as a secretary's policies. So without the seasoned civil servants up there, as well as other aides, military folks, both enlisted and senior officers, if they're not experienced, then it's going to be chaos. We're seeing that example here. I have not heard of any senior civil servants up there, and I'm also in touch with the Pentagon. And from the sounds of it, they have Hegseth has brought in loyalists to him, and they have come in there and they're fighting among each other. They don't know the seriousness of their work. They don't know how to go about their work. They've never been in the building. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. My understanding is Hegseth's wife is very much involved with the front office, and a lawyer that he brought in and had him commissioned into the Navy Reserve. It's a grab bag of advisors, and we're seeing what happens when you don't have seasoned hands up there helping the Secretary of Defense.
Mr. Russell, now the unverified claims, the internal purges, the media restrictions, the loyalists favoring the administrative efficiency over seasoned hands, now defining the Pentagon operations. Are we witnessing the politicization of America's national defense apparatus as a whole?
Short answer right now, yes. And that's a problem. As my colleague pointed out, the career senior executive service staff that serves in the higher echelons at the Pentagon, in talking with some of them, a lot of them have put in their letters to retire early. We're starting to see others put in their resignation letters to go to private sector. The politicization has gotten so bad that we are driving the career folks that have been there in some instances 15, 20, 25, 30 years that are now leaving government service, who have been loyal government service, apolitical in their service to the Department of Defense, to multiple secretaries of defense, such as my colleague. They're now leaving because of the fact that they're either fearful that they're going to be drawn into a political landscape that is uncomfortable for their position, or they just don't trust the leadership going forward, and they don't want to be a part of this inexperienced leadership that is putting U.S. military lives at risk. And I don't blame them. And the thing about it is, right now, Congress, and we're hearing some rumblings that there are several Republicans in both the House and the Senate that are looking at Pete Hegseth saying, look, we've got a problem here. Congress right now has to hold accountable Pete Hegseth and the flaming dumpster fire that he's created in the senior levels of the Department of Defense. And until they do, Donald Trump's not going to do it because Pete Hegseth's a loyalist. Until they do, they are going to continue not to make the U.S. military stronger. They're going to continue to weaken it. They're not going to save military lives. They're going to put them at risk. And they are jeopardizing U.S. national security as long as they continue down this path.
Mr. Townsend, how might the Pentagon's crackdown on the press access and the promotion of religious services inside its halls affect the transparency and the civilian-military relations under the Trump administration?
Well, I think the religious prayer breakfasts and things like that, that's not so much of a problem as long as all the religions have their day in the sun in terms of holding a prayer breakfast, that type of thing. So I'm not so worried about that as I am worried about the other point you raised, which is the transparency with the press. My colleague talked about the Congress holding the Secretary of Defense responsible, and he has to answer to the Congress for a lot of different issues that the Congress has oversight over. And so I think the press, though, has a responsibility as well to be the watchdog, if you will, that entity that provides to the American people as well as to those in Washington, such as the Congress, information on what they are seeing within the Pentagon. There's got to be another force, and it's the media that's got to be that watchdog. I will say that the media has a not a very consistent record of always getting the facts right. They and some of the media are biased, one side and the other. But on the whole, my experience with the media in Pentagon has been a very good one. It's been one where they have been working very hard to try to understand what's going on and to provide a balanced story to the people outside. So you need that kind of thing. If you don't have that, then you don't have much transparency except what the secretary and his people will be telling you through public affairs office, and that's one-sided for sure. So you need that counterbalance of the press within the Pentagon to do their job. We depend on them to do their job right. We depend on the DoD to give them access where it's appropriate, and to work with them to make sure that there's the right story goes out. If you have constraints on the media, you keep them locked up. You put them through hassles to do their job. Not only are they not going to be able to get all the facts and make sure their stories are straight, but you're not going to get your own message out. And so Pete Hegseth's got to understand that as he controls the media access, he also impacts how well his message gets out to the American people.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Russell, if these scandals do persist without correction, could they erode not only the public trust but also the morale and cohesion of the U.S. armed forces themselves? Can we actually see President Donald Trump being cornered into having to make a decision that he might not want to?
Well, I say we're at that point right now. I mean, look, morale is already at a low point. Yet the White House and to my colleague's point, the Secretary of Defense, that message isn't getting out to the media because they don't have access to the building. They don't have access to leadership, and anybody that talks to the media is going to be threatened with career or punitive damage or punitive punishment. Mm-hmm. The reality is that Donald Trump is at that point right now. Look, we go back. You brought up Signalgate. The use of Signal, the use of a messaging app, a publicly utilized messaging app, although encrypted. I mean, that's amateur hour. That doesn't show confidence to the leadership or the ministers of defense in our allied nations. What that shows is it's kids hour, and that does not help. Donald Trump is at a point right now where he either is going to go up to the Hill, he's going to make people angry because, as we saw during his confirmation hearings, he just doesn't get the fact that he needs the support of Congress. And he's going to go up there thinking that, well, as long as I have the support of Donald Trump, everything will be fine. I will remain in place and nothing bad will happen. I will be Secretary of Defense. Also, the reality is that in order for him to be successful and to guarantee the continuity of operations for this Defense Department, is he needs the 100% full apolitical support of both civilians and military leadership that are not just political flying monkeys. These are people that are going to adhere to their oath of office, and they're going to back the Constitution and those that serve under their commands, as opposed to just making what Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth is going to make them happy. Mm-hmm. That is the position that we're in right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Jim Townsend, the former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, and Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Global Foreign Policy Center Executive Director. Gentlemen, thank you both very much for your special insights and this valuable discussion. In Washington's shadows, the chaos challenges command. With Hegseth under fire, the Pentagon teeters between war and wisdom, loyalty and law. The world watches. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank. I'm Henny Safe. Thank you for joining us.